Good evening, everybody. Welcome along to the Bundesliga Show, brought to you by Over the Bar. Hope everyone's doing well this evening and looking forward to a brilliant show. As you can see, we're all set up for a show of the last fantasy football, looking ahead to Matchweek 34 and the last prediction show of the season as well. And as it's the last, we thought, well, we might as well combine it all and have one mega show. Good evening to Mark and Runa. How are you both doing, chaps?
Good evening. Very good, thanks.
Yeah, all good my end. Yeah, taking in a bit of Italian football as well in the last week. So yeah, it's all been happening really.
Yeah, so to put in context, we're very, very lucky to have Runa at all because he's literally on holiday. So absolute legend for jumping on for half an hour for the fantasy football aspect of the show. Really, really appreciate it, Runa. Mark, obviously, welcome back. Yeah, your travels have led you all the way back to the show tonight. So yeah, really looking forward to getting stuck into it. Good evening to everyone that's watching. So I can see a couple of people already checking into the chat. Jay and William, yeah, guten Abend to you both. Just before we get cracking, just a little bit of admin as always. If you can leave a thumbs up on this show, this big show, to see us through to the end of Matchweek 34, that'd be awesome. Comment along, of course. We really welcome it. Questions, predictions, the lot, everything. Get it in. It's your last chance. We obviously do have a bit more time from the fantasy football aspect of things. Obviously, the show's now going up a little bit earlier, and you have until Saturday as well because there's no Friday evening kickoff. So plenty of time to ask you questions as well if you're not watching with us live. Runa and I, and we'll try and look at those as the next few days go on. And of course, subscribe to the channel. Plenty to happen. And then just very finally, before we get into it, me and Mark pretty much confirmed that we're going to basically do a watch along on Saturday for the last weekend of the Bundesliga. Match week 34. We're just going to watch whatever games we can and just bring to you the drama of basically the relegation race, the race for Europe. It should be an awesome afternoon. We'll promo it and get it all sorted for you in the next day or so. But just a bit of a forewarning to join us and have a bit of fun on Saturday afternoon. Right then, fantasy football time. We're going to start with defenders as always, Runa. So we'll kickstart with your budget, mid-price, and premium, and then we'll run through questions as and when they come in. So over to you.
Yeah, thanks. First of all, I just want to say that of course this match day is very different from most of the others, given that we can see all the lineups on Saturday afternoon. So that's a big plus, and we can make our transfers based on those confirmed lineups. Would have been nice to be able to do that last week with all the injuries and doubts, but at least we can do it this week. And a guy that I'll be looking for in Leverkusen's lineup is Arthur, who has been on the sidelines for a large chunk of the season with a serious injury, but he's back now, and he started the last two Bundesliga games for Leverkusen. On the left side of the fence with Grimaldo getting rested for the important games coming up, the two finals, and I think that's likely this week as well, that Arthur will start again and Grimaldo will get another rest. And as we can see, he had a very productive game last week, 21 points to his name, and he cost just 2.5 million. So obviously that's a really cheap price for a starting left wing back for Leverkusen. So if he's in the lineup, then he's a good budget option this week. And my mid-price pick is Ian Marston from Dortmund, with Dortmund playing at home against Darmstadt, who are already relegated and have a lot of injuries as well. Very shaky at the back too. I think it makes a lot of sense to stack up on Dortmund players this week. The big question is how much they will rotate this week. Didn't work out for them last week. Worked out pretty well the week before that against Augsburg, but I think they will probably field a stronger team this time around. Also given that it will be Marco Reus's last home game for the club. I think they will try to give him a proper farewell and feel a bit stronger side, maybe to get some confidence in before the Champions League final. And I think Ian Marston is a player to target at the back. If he starts with his pace and dynamic playing style, I think he could really hurt the shaky Darmstadt defense. And finally, my premium pick is Alphonso Davies, who had one of his better Bundesliga games this season against Wolfsburg last week, I think. It's generally been a quite disappointing season for Davies, but he scored a screamer against Real Madrid in the Champions League and got 15 points last week in the Bundesliga. So maybe that's given him a bit of confidence. And I think with Grimaldo and Frimpong both likely to be benched again, with Leverkusen's 2 finals coming up, as I said, Davies is alternative worth considering in the premium category. It is worth noting, though, that Bayern are expected to field a second string side again, and worked out well for them last week, but we'll see this week. Could, of course, negatively affect his numbers that he's not playing with the full strength side. But nevertheless, good game for him last week, so might be worth a shot.
Yeah, he's seemingly trying to get himself, selling his own personal worth right now, isn't he, Davies? Great stuff. Mark, do you want to pick up any questions that come in whilst we're doing it? I think there's one in already from Jay, and then we'll just move our way through.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's also a question that I was thinking about as well, actually, because obviously Leverkusen have been really heavily rotating in recent weeks, haven't they? Obviously, I think Grimaldo's actually missed the last 2 or 3 games in the Bundesliga from the starting lineup. Obviously, you've already mentioned Artur. So what about Frimpong as well? Do you think he's likely to start, or do you think he's going to be benched? And if not, who should we bring in place of him, Rune?
I think he'll be benched again as well. Frimpong, I don't think it makes sense to risk too much, given the 2 important games they have coming up after this one. So in terms of alternative star options, I think Mittelstedt at home against Gladbach could be an option. He's been playing a very consistent season for Stuttgart and also did quite well last week. Seems like a pretty safe option, and I feel quite confident that Stuttgart will dominate and win that game. So I think he could be worth a shot. I think Gosens, a bit more of a gamble at home for Union against Freiburg, playing in a very advanced role for Union in a game that matters a lot to them. That's also a point worth looking at this stage of the season, which teams have something to play for and who don't. And Union have a lot to play for. And Gosens is usually a big provider for them in terms of goals and assists. So if you want to take a gamble, then he could be an option too.
Yeah, then an interesting point in from Jonah as well, saying that Weiser, Gunter and Vitek playing in a very advanced role could be big, good picks. What would you say about that, Rune? Would you agree on that? Yeah,
especially Weiser actually at home against Bochum. That's a quite good game for him, and he's a good alternative to Marston in that same price category. Vitek, of course, as well. He's playing. I think he'll play as a winger.
Yeah.
So yeah, but more of a gamble than Weiser. Weiser is an option, always worth considering fantasy wise. He's been doing well season after season in an advanced fullback role. So especially Weiser, I think, is a very good shout too.
Yeah.
I think there's the second part of Jay's question as well was in a straight shootout between the 2, who do you pick, Mittelstedt or Matson? And then Jonas obviously picked up on the fact that Mittelstedt will be her defense star or maybe Matson. So it looks like it's a toss up between these 2 at the moment, Rune, for a lot of people, it seems.
Yeah, I think a lot of people will be going with Mittelstedt. So I think he's the most safe option as well. So it depends on whether you want to differentiate yourself and maybe try to do something else, to try to climb up the rankings. I think Mittelstedt will be the guy that most people will go with. So yeah, that's what you need to consider, whether you want to try something different or go with the safe option.
Brilliant stuff. I think, yeah, that's everything in at the moment live. I'll double check X as well for questions that were asked under the tweet. But in the meantime, let's move on to our midfielders, which are now going at the bottom of your screen. And Runa, take us through some of your budget pick in a very interesting young Bayern midfielder.
Yeah, obviously Svonerik started last week pretty much out of nothing and scored an early goal on the wing for Bayern. And I think looks pretty likely to start again. We can see that on Saturday. He scored and Sané, Musiala, Gnabry still out. So will probably be a second string Bayern side out again, and Svonerik will be likely to get the chance once more, and should take a lot of confidence from the goal he scored last week. And I think if you have a winger starting for Bayern available at 1.2 million, then he's always worth considering. It could be good value for money. Mid-price pick is Marco Reus. I don't think you can really look past him this week. It's his, as I said earlier, it's his last home game for Borussia Dortmund, and he's playing against Darmstadt. His teammates will probably do all they can to give him a good farewell game at home. Likely to take the penalty should they get one. The free kick outside the penalty box will probably be taken by him as well. I think it will be that kind of game, and Darmstadt have been pretty terrible, as we all know, and had a pretty terrible game against Hoffenheim, to say the least, last week. So I think, Reus just makes a lot of sense this week. And finally, my premium pick is Jonas Hofmann, who is one of the Leverkusen players I feel pretty certain about starting with Wirtz, likely to be risked. I think he looks quite likely to play in an attacking midfield role for Leverkusen. And although he hasn't been as good in the second half of the season, he's still the fifth best midfielder in terms of points if you look at the whole season. And as we can see, he scored 13 points last week, which is quite respectable too, especially in a week where there was a lot of low-scoring premium midfielders. So if Hoffmann starts, I think he's the guy to go for in midfield for Leverkusen.
Yeah, then a good question as well from Jay, as you can see on the bottom of your screen. Given a number of top midfielders and defenders could be missing on match day 34, where do you see the most points coming from this match day? Defense or midfield? So maybe that would influence your formation to play 4-3-3 or 3-4-3. What do you think about that one, Runa?
That's interesting. Also depends on who starts and who doesn't. For example, does Olmo start this week, or is he deemed not fit enough to play and will be on the bench? That's one question. At least I think Reus and Xavi Simons are two players that makes a lot of sense to get in midfield. Hoffmann as well should be a good option, but then you have those three, and then you could maybe spend some more on defense. I'm actually not sure yet. Haven't made my decision. Also depends on Grimaldo and Frimpong, for example. Do they start or are they benched again? So I think you need to make that decision on Saturday afternoon. A bit of a boring answer, but depends on a lot of factors, I think. And we can see the lineups this week, so why not wait and see?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Just one more point as well from Joner as well, stating that, I'm thinking of picking Reus and Brandt simply because I think Dortmund will score plenty. Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of people will be thinking that Dortmund are going to run through, 5, 6, even 7, so that means it's probably going to be a 1-0, doesn't it? But yeah, Runa, do you think there's a lot of sense in starting a lot of Dortmund players this weekend? Or?
Yeah, I think Dortmund are the team to really target this week. By far the biggest favorites. I think they will. As I said, it's a game that it does matter to them because it's Reus' last home game, and he was so disappointed last week after the Mainz defeat. And obviously they also want to get some confidence and have a good game before the Champions League final. So there is a bit of meaning to that game for Dortmund, and that's not the case for many of the other top teams. And at the same time, Darmstadt have just been so poor lately when I watched the first half of the Hoffenheim-Darmstadt game last week, I just thought to myself, hey, I should have just stacked Hoffenheim players in my team. And I looked at Kaderabek and Kramaric, for example, but just couldn't fit them in. But yeah, this week, I think, as Jonah writes in his comment, makes a lot of sense to get some of the attacking players from Dortmund especially.
Yeah, absolutely. There's one from Greg Jenkins on X as well, and it kind of ties in with what Jay has asked as well in the comments. So Greg's asked, any teams to avoid? Understand teams like Köln are still fighting, but their fantasy options aren't appealing. And Jay's kind of mentioned staying away or keep or selling Leipzig assets because obviously they travel away to Frankfurt. So I guess, yeah, as a covering question, Rune, what teams do we think are we avoiding where it might be something that in other weeks would appeal?
Yeah, I probably wouldn't invest too heavily in Leipzig. They've had some injury problems lately. They don't have anything to play for. So I think Simons is a player I want as always a big threat. But the likes of Raum and Openda, for example, I think it makes sense to consider picking someone else depending on the transfers you have and whether you can spend them on those kind of players. So yeah, sure, Leipzig. Not as attractive as they usually are. And then, of course, I mean, Bayern will probably field a side that is far from at full strength. And that's also worth considering. Obviously, it gives chances to players who may not play that much usually, like Svonarek and Mathis Tel, for example. But obviously, it also makes them less likely to do well. The fact that they're missing so many big players. So that's also worth considering. But generally, yeah, invest in the teams that have something to play for, where they have something at stake. And of course, you also have to believe that they can actually get a result if you don't believe in Köln. Then maybe go with someone from Mainz instead, for example. They've been playing some great football. They still have something to play for. And Wolfsburg don't. So maybe that's a good team in the relegation race to bet on instead.
Yeah, just want to pick up on a comment from Lawrence as well, one of our great regulars. He's just at work at the moment, so can't watch, but just wanted to say thanks for the show this season. Have a great summer. Thank you very much, Lawrence, for that lovely comment. I'm sure we will have a nice rested summer, and thank you for tuning in and asking really good questions. I hope work isn't too bad for you. And then one more before we move on to strikers, and then we'll kind of go through any more questions that come in. With what is at stake, do you think Lee and Kynes could score well? Obviously, Kynes, a player that, particularly Mark hasn't been too impressed with his performances overall this season. But the captain, he'll be responsible for taking penalties. Lee's been a really good asset, so far as well. So I'd probably be siding more with Lee, I guess, Rune, than maybe Kynes. But I guess if he's on set pieces, then there's every chance as well.
Yeah, haven't been too impressed with Kynes this season either. So and Köln generally, I know they've pulled off some amazing comebacks lately and been getting some results, but I trust Mainz a lot more, especially after what they did to Dortmund last week. That was very impressive. Generally, I think they've looked like the different side since Bo Henriksen took over. So pretty sure they'll get a result against Wolfsburg, and I think Amiri and Lee and Gruda are all very good options in midfield, and I would prefer them to Kynes.
Yeah, absolutely. Right then. So next up, of course, are our strikers. Rune, do you want to walk us through those? Also, Ballon just checking in as well. Hi, Ballon. Hope you're doing well. Just saying, I think some people will pick some of the Bayer players because they won't lose. Yeah, very true. We'll look forward to seeing how Leverkusen get on, and if they can pick up that undefeated season, we'll we'll do the predictions obviously shortly in a moment. Over to you, Rune, for strikers.
Yeah, budget pick is Mathis Tel. Kane is unlikely to start again, as it doesn't really make sense to risk anything with the Euros coming up and everything. And he's had a bit of a back problem lately. So Tel is likely to start up front again for Bayern. And I think 9.6 million is a very modest fee for a player playing as a lone striker for Bayern. And I think he's always really energetic when he plays, trying to make the most of the chances he gets whenever he's thrown in. So it's a very good game for him, at least, to show what he's capable of. Mid-price pick is Dennis Undav. Wasn't directly involved in Stuttgart's goal last week. Still managed to score 11 points, 6 of which came from goal attempts. So yeah, just says a lot about his potential. He's very happy to take shots at goal, and is just very involved overall for Stuttgart. They could easily have scored more than 1 goal against Augsburg. Kubek had a very good game in goal for them, for Augsburg, and kept out some shots that could have gone in with a little more luck from Stuttgart's side. And now they are playing Gladbach at home. It's been a pretty difficult season for Gladbach. They've had a lot of problems at the back, so I think makes a lot of sense to back Stuttgart to win that game. And Undav, I think maybe even doubling up with Undav and Girassi could be an option this week. And then finally, Niklas Füllkrug is my premium pick, another Dortmund player. I think that, as we can see, he's owned by just 4%. So potential differential, depending on how many fantasy managers who will bring him in this week. But the fact that he's playing Darmstadt at home automatically makes him worth considering, at least if he starts, and we can see that. So if he starts, he's a good alternative if you're looking to sell Kane, if you kept him last week. If you're looking for an alternative to Openda, for example, I think Füllkrug could be worth going with this week.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So just a couple of questions in from Jay as well, again, mentioning the injuries, which are kind of piling up a little bit for certain teams. So he mentions Darmstadt, Augsburg and Gladbach look to be ravaged by injuries. Should we double up on a forward duo from Dortmund? We've already kind of mentioned them, but what about Leverkusen and Stuttgart, who are playing obviously Augsburg and Gladbach respectively? You've already kind of mentioned this a little bit, Rune, but what would you say? Is it worth really going all out on those 3 teams this weekend?
Yeah, I think those are the 3 teams to really back this week. I think in terms of doubling up front, we'll probably only do that with Girassi and Undav, just because I trust them both a lot. They've been really consistent and usually do well, both of them, every game. But sure, I mean, if you're looking at like Füllkrug and Sancho, for example, from Dortmund, or Adli and Schick from Leverkusen, for example, that could be an option too. A lot of good differentials, and at this stage of the season, if you want to make a huge leap forward, then it might make sense to go with the differential option. And it's one of those weeks where I think there are multiple good options. You could look at other players than Girassi and Undav, for example, if you want to take a bit more of a chance. Yeah,
and then another really good question in from Jonah as well, mentioning, picking Kramaric 4 weeks back and have not regretted it. Yeah, I think a lot of people are regret not picking him after last week, that's for sure. But double-figure returns without necessarily scoring. Yeah, and then Undav, and what about Moukoko as well, who might fly under the radar? I mean, he has been getting a few games recently, hasn't he, Rune? So do you think it's worth sticking him in, or is it a bit too much of a risk, that one?
Yeah, if he starts, personally, I expect Füllkrug to get the start this time. I don't think Dortmund will rotate as much as they did last week and the week before that. I think they're not in the same position. They can feel the stronger side this time, and I think they will look to do so just to avoid another disappointment. I think that would be a shame, especially with the Champions League final coming up and everything. I think they want to make sure that they win this game. So sure, if Moukoko starts, he's a good differential, but I think Füllkrug will get the nod this time.
Brilliant stuff. Right then, so that's pretty much us for fantasy football for this season. Just picking up on what Jay's saying, obviously FPL Gunnosaurus. Thank you for all your tips, Rune. Obviously enjoyed the rest of your holiday. Look forward to predictions now, which is great. Thanks for that, Jay. Just from a fantasy football perspective, I know we're literally moving on with predictions in a few seconds. But closing it up, Rune, absolute legend for being available for us for all season, and joining me on a Friday morning and spending all that time that you do to gather all your tips and share them all with us. I mean, I know I'd be nowhere without your tips. I think I'm still inside the top 2,000 in the world. For me, that's unreal. Just quickly, Rune, where are you hoping to finish overall in the world for you? What would be a successful end to the season?
I don't know. I had a terrible match day 33 with all the. I couldn't transfer out all the players I wanted, so I actually slipped down to 54th in the world, which is still pretty good, but a bit of a disappointment for me, especially because I've been around rank 30 for most of the season. But I hope to, if I can climb into the top 40 with a strong match day 34, I think that would be nice. But we'll see.
Mark, do we dare ask where you are?
Let's just move on.
Yeah,
actually, funnily enough, I also had an absolute nightmare match day 33 as well. I mean, part of that was because I was on holiday, but also just a lot of key players just didn't turn up. And obviously a lot of players didn't start as well. I mean, I've been kind of getting by with the Frimpong and Grimaldo double as well. And they've been just picking up ridiculous points every week. But obviously neither of them started last week. So that shot me down a lot. Yeah. But to be honest, for long periods of the season, I was doing better, but it's fallen apart since Leverkusen won the league and there's been all these rotations. Then it's fallen apart a bit. But yeah, thanks, Rune. It's always I always watch your show, and it's an absolute pleasure. And thanks a lot for all the work you've done for us.
Yeah, no worries. It's been a pleasure for me as well. Just wanted to say that the fact that a lot of people actually wants to listen to all my fantasy ramblings. That's enjoyable for me as well, and I think for my family too, because then they don't have to listen to me as much talking about fantasy stuff. So that's good for all parties, I think.
Legends. Right, enjoy the rest of your holiday, and we'll catch you soon, Rune.
All the best, Rune.
Right then, guys, we are moving on swiftly with this show as we move on to match week 34 predictions, Mark. This is going to be a brilliant end to the season. Yeah, we don't have a title race. Yeah, there's not much jeopardy in regards to Champions League. But there's so much up for grabs in regards to relegation. There's still European places to be decided. And there's lots of goodbyes as well. Obviously, we've already talked about Marco Reus, and there were quite a few goodbyes last week. Obviously, home-wise, like Christian Streich, his last home game with Freiburg, etc. So we're going to work our way through. And hopefully everyone can enjoy this with us. Get involved, whether, if you're watching on X or Twitter, honestly, jump over to YouTube, have your say, and just have a bit of fun with it, predictions-wise. Honestly, get them in, and we'll work our way through now. And we'll try and do it in a bit chronological order, shall we, Mark? In terms of maybe we'll do the ones that don't matter as much first, and then we'll kind of leave the relegation ones till last. So I think we can safely start with Dortmund versus Darmstadt. Obviously, a farewell match for a legend in the shape of Marco Reus. Is he going to get the farewell that he deserves?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's going to be a game where obviously Dortmund are looking to kind of rack up a few goals, aren't they? I mean, obviously the disappointment of last week after the highs of Paris, just a few days before. I mean, they won't be overly disappointed with that. They did make a lot of changes, and obviously it was a much, much, much bigger game for the home side, and they just got blitzed in the first 20 minutes, didn't they? So, but this is a game where now, they're going to be looking for a big send-off. Obviously for Reus, first of all, but also they need to play themselves into form before the Champions League as well. So a lot of those players will see the chance of filling the boots. And I totally agree with what Rune said, that I think we will see a full team from Dortmund, and they will be looking to get goals and confidence before, obviously, the Champions League final, which is still, I think, a couple of weeks away. There's going to be a 2-week gap that Dortmund have, which is not ideal, really, at this stage of the season. But yeah, Darmstadt have just been poor this season, ultimately, and they're probably going to end on 17 points, which is barely better than what Schalke got in the first season that we covered. I think they got, was it 16 in the end? So it has been a beleaguered season with only 3 wins and just not very good football in general. So I am going to go for a goal fest, actually. I'm going to go for a 7-0 to the home team. I'm sorry, Darmstadt fans that are watching, but I just see this as a game where Dortmund is going to let their hair down and just go for it, similar to what they did against Augsburg the other week. And, I think they're going to get blitzed, basically.
Okay, well, any friends that we've made in Darmstadt, we've now lost forever, I think. But yeah, it's hard to argue against a big Dortmund win for sure. Okay, if we move our way down a little bit, we'll come back to Union, we'll come back to Leverkusen because of the unbeaten season. But let's do Frankfurt Leipzig next, because again, a game that doesn't really have anything riding on it, Mark. Should be quite an open one, this. Leipzig obviously missing a few players as well. Questions over Olmo, I think, also. And the Frankfurt team has been doing better from a performance point of view recently. Obviously, they weren't amazing against Gladbach, but Gladbach needed something as well. I can see this maybe being maybe a high-scoring draw. I'm going to slot in a 2-2. I just want goals, basically. What do you reckon quickly on this one?
Yeah, I think we're going to see goals in this game because there is actually a little bit for Frankfurt to play for. If they get a point, the guaranteed Europa League, which is obviously much better than Conference League. So there's a little bit to play for, but I don't think they'll be overly worried, obviously, with Hoffenheim playing Bayern as well later on at the same time. So it's unlikely that Hoffenheim will win that, but you never know. I would agree. I think it'll either be a 3-2 either way, but I would stick with a 2-2. I think it's a fair prediction, that one.
Yeah, very good. Okay, games that don't maybe have as much riding on it. Let's then go to Stuttgart, Gladbach. We know Stuttgart, obviously Champions League, amazing season. Just seen that five of the players have been nominated for the national team as well for the Euros, which is awesome. There's this kind of battle for second though, so we can maybe go back up to Hoffenheim after this one. So Stuttgart are home to Gladbach. Gladbach now safe mathematically. Now are they even more on the beach? Mark, what are we saying? A big home win for the boys?
I don't think it's going to be a massive home win, but I think it will be a home win, yeah. Let's not forget that as far as I know, that if Leverkusen beat Kaiserslautern, which is obviously very, very likely in the cup final, actually the team that finishes second will get a shot at the Super Cup as well, which is obviously in Germany much, much more serious than in some other countries. So Stuttgart will want to win this. They'll know that there's a chance potentially that they could overtake Bayern with a win. So they want to end this miracle season. I would go that far to describe it as a miracle season on a good way, as they pretty much never stopped from the first game when they beat Bochum 5-0. And they'll want to, get another good win here. I don't think it's going to be a hammering, but I would go for a 3-1 home win against a Gladbach team who are just awful defensively, basically.
Yeah, 3-1's not been the greatest of seasons for Gladbach. They need to go back to the drawing board. Jay's going for 11-0, a double hat trick for Royce. Well, who knows? You never know. If he's in your fantasy team, you'll be buzzing. Frankfurt could still get UEFA Champions League football if Dortmund win, of course. Yeah, you're very right there, Jay. Morris will come back to your question on Strike and Freiburg when we do that game in a moment. And Morris also saying if they win, aka Stuttgart, he believes that they'll break their points record, which I think you're right. I think I've seen stuff on social media about that. Just encapsulating what would be an amazing season. Right. So next up, we said we were going to go to Hoffenheim Bayern, Mark, just to see obviously if Bayern can secure second place. Plenty of news at the moment in and around Bayern, of course. The managerial or the head coach merry-go-round is drawing to a close, it seems. And it looks like Tuchel's not going anywhere. We need to get the Wolf of Wall Street kind of image up and just whack his face on, because it looks like Tuchel's team put. Well, it's been reported anyway. I think it's still early doors, but the amount of different rejections and declines that they've had so far have not worked with them. The fact that they've had this little bit of an upturn, we can maybe talk about this a little bit more on Saturday when we're doing the watch along. But for the game itself, like Rune's established rotations, young Bayern side against Hoffenheim. What do you reckon to this one? Will they just about do the job?
Yeah, I think we're going to see a really weak Bayern side, in this game. And to be honest, this is the kind of game where they usually get turned over, actually, typically. I think, and as a lot of people have mentioned, actually, sixth place could still potentially be Champions League, incredibly, which means that basically Hoffenheim still have a realistic chance of getting Champions League, because all it takes is a turnaround. Yeah, I know, as crazy as it sounds, because they've had an up and down season themselves, but ironically, that 6-0 win last week has kept them in a realistic chance here, because Leipzig are going to have a chance. I think a 4-goal swing, and basically Hoffenheim are going to be one Dortmund win away from Champions League, which is just absolutely unreal. And I am actually going to go for Hoffenheim to get the win here. I just think they finished the season quite well. I think they've been good in recent weeks. They've started scoring goals again, which is good to see. And I think there's just a lot more line on this. And in general, at home, they have beaten Bayern a couple of times in recent years.
Yeah,
I remember them beating them 4-1 a few years ago as well. So I think it's highly possible, if we do see the likes of Von Arek, obviously Bayer being called up to the German team, so he's going to want to show his quality against, the record Meister. So I'm going to go for a 2-1 home win here as one of the big shocks of the weekend.
Very good. Grand. Okay, so I think our attention now turns to relegation. So we'll have to work our way through here. And we'll just kind of start. Well, let's just go back to the top and work our way back down. We'll deal with the matter of Leverkusen first, shall we? Simple question mark. Does the unbeaten Bundesliga season come to fruition? Are they going to see it through against a very off-colour Augsburg side? I think we know the answer.
200% yes. I think it's an absolute. You couldn't pick a better opponent to try and get the 34 unbeaten, to be honest, because as much as we've enjoyed Augsburg at times this season, they finished the season like a car crash, to be honest. I always say about Augsburg that there's that magnet just drawing them back down that table into the lower bottom half, and they could still potentially finish, I think, as low as 13th, which would be very disappointing considering just at least 12th or 13th, but that would be a disappointment ultimately if after being in the top half of pretty much all the Rückrunde and long periods of the Hinrunde too. So, and they're probably going to get a tonking here as well, in truth. I don't think Leverkusen will go strong, but I still think they'll beat this off-colour Augsburg side, just as Dortmund did a couple of weeks ago. They do have injuries as well, and they just not finished well. So I'm going to go for a 4-0 here, actually.
I was thinking 4-0. Yeah, 4-0 I agree with. Yeah, I like that. Okay, good stuff. I mean, we'll revel in that on Saturday as well, won't we? Right then, the rather large matter of relegation. Let's start off with Union Berlin hosting Freiburg. This has got some really nice or weird symmetry, doesn't it, Mark? Because of what we had last season with Union and Freiburg finishing off against each other. But this is a very different game. The two teams are in very different places. They both suffered this season. Union, of course, a lot more. This is a really tricky one because Freiburg have been really patchy. I think Union can definitely get some wins in regards to the way that Freiburg have been defending the players that they have available as well. They have shown in the last 2 games that they have goals in them all of a sudden, from different areas of the pitch. So this is a really tricky one to call for me because Freiburg, they'll want to give Strike a great last game, and we've got European associations with them. Union desperately need the win as well. What are you feeling? Honestly, for these 4 games, I'm really struggling. Maybe apart from
Yeah, I've been thinking about this one all week, to be honest. Yeah, and it is a hard one to predict. Just simply, normally I would always tip the team that have got more to play for in this kind of game. But I just think the way Union have played the last 2 weeks, my God, I mean, the Bochum, collapse, basically losing that game at home. And then obviously the absolute disappointment of losing at Köln from 2-0 up. I mean, what can you say? It's been a disastrous 2 weeks. But I'm actually still going to go for Union to get the win, simply because I just think, as you say, Rory, they have started scoring goals by, not always the prettiest of goals, but the likes of Hollerbach, Vertessen has started to do a little bit better. Freiburg have just not been playing well, and they've not really given Streich the send-off we were all hoping he would get, to be honest. I think they've only won one game since he announced the departure, and that was at Darmstadt, which was also a pretty scrappy one as well. I don't think they're going to get the second one here, and I think Union are going to nick it 2-1, probably with a late goal. I can see them winning this one.
Okay, 2-1, we're saying for Union to just about nick it. Interesting stuff there. Right, let's just jump down, just seeing if I haven't missed any comments. Jay just picking up on the Hoffenheim point as well there. Right, Wolfsburg, Mainz, Mark. They're, again, another team, the home team, that have just had a peculiar season with what we think that they should be producing from a squad point of view. Hasenhüttl's come in and been okay. Obviously Peter's talked a lot about the tactics, which he doesn't really get. Very much the opposite of what Bo Henriksen has introduced at Mainz. Their record has been excellent since he's come in. And obviously they were fantastic against Dortmund, but there's still an awful lot of risk in this game against the Wolfsburg side that can kind of just play with freedom and kind of probably just go for it a little bit. They'll want to, put on a show of a sense, and we haven't seen many shows from them. They're still a dangerous team. They still have weapons. I still feel that Mainz, again, will have more to play for. I kind of feel that they'll get a positive result. It's just what type of positive result. I honestly don't know. I can't see them losing, basically, but I'm almost tempted to sit on the fence here. What are you feeling that they'll get the win?
Everyone's talking as though this is a foregone conclusion that Mainz are just going to walk this, but I really don't see that happening, to be honest. Yeah, I think obviously they were brilliant last week, and they've been brilliant in general, but it's more been at home where we've seen the better football. Like away from home, they've still been kind of grinding out, a couple of draws, but it's mostly been at home where we've seen the spectacular football. And as it often is with Mainz, it's not only this season, this is something that Mainz have been doing for years, really. They've always been a strong home side. And it's a tricky game because Wolfsburg, as you say, they are an underwhelming team, ultimately. They have improved results-wise under Hasenhüttl, but, I mean, last week it was just a bit of a nothing performance against Bayern, really. They were disappointing at the end of the day. But at the same time, it's still not going to be a walkover, this one, for me. And they only need a point, basically, because of the goal difference. They need a point to guarantee the status, and that is what I think they'll get. I think it's going to be a 1-1 draw. Probably not the prettiest of games because there's still a lot on this for Mainz. And as I say, people are talking as though they're going to win this 3-0 and it's out of the water. But I don't see it being like that at all. And, Wolfsburg don't lose that many home games, really. And I see a 1-1 draw, which would just about be enough to keep Mainz in the division.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree with you. I don't think this will be that easy for Mainz. And, prepared for egg on our faces on Saturday, that's fine. But I think it'll be quite a tight affair for sure. Right, Werder Bochum next. An interesting one to follow for Bochum's point of view. They can still get drawn into things from I think mainly the point is on this, Mark, is the goal difference, isn't it? Which is particularly bad for Bochum, so they can get drawn into it. Werder have got a bit of a free shot. Can Werder technically get into Europe still? Unsure about that.
No, they're out of it now. Yeah, as of last week's draw, they're out.
Yeah. Bit of a free shot. They're playing well, played some good footy. It might, again, just come down to player availability. We know obviously the Paslak suspension with Suarez still being out maybe put some issues for Balcom at fullback. Verda, I don't think have too many injury worries, so that's obviously a positive for them. Obviously, Balcom are a lot stronger at home as well. If we look at their away form, if I can just bring it up. So Balcom are 17th in the league when it comes to away matches. They only have 10 points away from home. They'll be so desperate, and Balcom have been finding a way for the last few seasons. But I'm really unsure about this one. I'm always wanting to sit on the fence again here. What are you saying?
Yeah, the problem with this is, as you say, it's the goal difference for Balcom. If they had 10 less goal difference, to be safe now, basically. That's the frustrating thing. Yeah, you always mention it. It's usually you, Rory, who talks about goal difference. And you were definitely right this season in the case of Balcom. And that 5-0 win was absolutely not, the 5-0 defeat last week was absolutely not what the doctor ordered for them, because if they'd have got just say a 1-0 defeat, they'd still be in a better position actually, and I think they'd need a goal swing. So even if they lost, then they could still stay up. But as things have happened, we predicted a Mainz point and an Union win, which would mean that Balcom would actually need something from this game to avoid the playoff. Incredibly, yeah. So, and I actually think Bremen are playing well again at the moment in general. They got that good point last week against Leipzig away, which not many people thought they had a chance, but I actually see the home side winning this game. I just think Balcom, I really want Balcom to stay up. I really do. I think they've been better than Union and Köln this season. But, at the end of the day, they have taken too many heavy defeats at times. And they should not be in this position. They should be at least 3 or 4 points better off, and they'd be safe by now. The Darmstadt 2-0 up and drew. The collapse against Köln, if they'd just got 1 point out of that game, they'd be safe by now. But I actually see them losing this game 2-0, and Balcom are going to be relying on other results to keep them in the division.
Yep. Okay, well, we'll lock that in. I think it kind of helps add to the drama of this show and for Saturday a little bit. And yeah, you're right in what you say. Balcom probably shouldn't be in this position, but lo and behold, they found a way to be in it. And just picking up on what Jay said earlier, Dusseldorf are locked in as the third place team in the slightest, so that's who the playoff match will be against. So that obviously in itself will be really interesting. Right then, one last prediction for the season for Matchweek 34. It all then rides on the miracle train of FC Köln. They're still clawing on to Bundesliga status for now, Mark. This is ginormous. Heidenheim, I mean, we'd probably be thinking at the start of the season Heidenheim would be well in the conversation from a relegation point of view, but what a breath of fresh air they have been. They're not in the conversation. But they also get to have a huge say on who does go down. Köln, they've been clinging on for a while now. Can they get the win just to make it a little bit more interesting? And obviously, we know certain things have to happen, as well as the Köln win from a goal overturning goals point of view. But I think the way that we predicted it, what we got? We've got Union losing. Where are we? By 1 goal. Oh, so we've got
winning.
Sorry. Okay, well that changes things, doesn't it? So it makes it more tricky for Köln, basically, doesn't it? Or it makes it impossible, I think, if I'm right.
Yeah.
Either way around, let's do the prediction from the match point of view. They have to do the job themselves first and have to just worry about the rest afterwards. Can they go to Heidenheim, a very tough place to win, and get the job done and just see what happens?
For me, yes, I see them getting the win. But the problem is as I say, I've already tipped the Union win. So I just feel as though it's unlucky because, Union pretty much couldn't handpick a better fixture than that one against Freiburg. That's the problem. Yeah. It's very hard to see them losing that game, in truth. If they lose that game, they deserve to go down 100% in my eyes. But Köln should win this game, in my eyes. I think they will they are on a decent run of form, actually, at the minute. You know, they've been fighting hard. They have been playing well by their standards. I just think Heidenheim, I just can't see them matching the Köln work ethic in this game. You know, at the end of the day, Köln will be buoyed after that miracle, yet another miracle that saved them for yet another week. I mean, in a way, it's a miracle that they're even still alive at this stage, going into week 34. I mean, obviously, it's a horrible position to be in, having to win the game and hope that the other team lose, and still needing a swing on top of that as well. So it's obviously still a pretty bleak situation for the away side. Let's also not forget that Heidenheim are the ones that officially relegated Darmstadt as well. So they're going for the double relegation of other teams as well. But I actually see Köln winning this game 2-0. I do think they'll get the job done, but I just can't see Freiburg helping them out, I'm afraid. And despite a very, very valiant effort to get out of it, I think Köln are going to be playing in this fight to Bundesliga next year.
Yeah. I think I'm happy to say that, and for the drama of the day, I can see Köln doing a job. I don't think it will be by 2 clear goals, though. And obviously, if we're talking about goal swings, I think it would be really difficult for them to do that. I think they'd be relying on Freiburg to help them out more so. I think they'd maybe go 2-1. But yeah, 2-0, 2-1, they'd still get the points. But, well, it's crucial because we don't know what obviously will happen with Union. So, yeah, I mean, we'll split the difference and say 2-1 because we know that we've already predicted an Union win. Right then, that is it for our predictions. Let's just quickly have a final look at what the table might be if me and Mark get all 9 spot on, which is probably quite rare, but who knows. We'll have Leverkusen on top with 90 points, an unbeaten season. What an amazing season it will be. It already is. Can they get the unbeaten job done? We reckon if Bayern lose to Hoffenheim and Stuttgart get the job done, they'll come second. We know our order, 4th and 5th for the rest of the Champions League teams. For Dortmund, we think Frankfurt will cling on with Hoffenheim getting that 7th place finish. Really good season for Werder in 8th. And then we go through mid-table all the way down to the bottom half, which obviously we know Darmstadt have relegated. Köln will go down based on other results is what we think. But Bochum will, play the playoff match. Mainz and Union will escape via goal difference. Gladbach only a point better off as well, my word. It's all looking very exciting for Saturday afternoon. So all there is left to say is thank you to everyone for jumping on and joining us for this bumper show tonight. Fantasy football predictions ahead of match week 34. Thank you to everyone that's watched. We wish you good luck from a fantasy point of view. We hope you enjoyed the games. To say again what we mentioned at the start of the match, at the start of the show, is that me and Mark are going to be doing a watch along for match week 34. We're going to tune into it. We're going to watch a couple of different games and just follow the drama. Saturday afternoon, we'll promo it everywhere that we can. But yeah, it would be awesome if you guys could join us and enjoy it with. I'm sure it'll be great fun. But all there is left to say is for the final fantasy football and prediction show for this season, very sad, is that, thank you everyone. And I'll hand you over to Mark to just close things up.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you enjoyed what you saw on the show this season, this evening, then check out our X as well, at Over the RFB and at Village Footy. Don't forget that we're not only a YouTube channel as well, we're also a podcast, so you can check that out as well in the description for the show. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Tell your friends about us as well. Don't forget, we have got a lot coming for you by the end of the season too. So as we mentioned, the first thing is this big kind of closing ceremony really on Saturday with the final match days, score update. Also, don't forget, we will be doing a few kind of closing shows as well for the season, as we always do, and potentially a watch along for either the Europa League and or the Champions League final as well, which obviously both include Bundesliga clubs. So yeah, thank you very much, guys, and we'll see you again on Saturday. We hope you check in. See you then, guys.